welcome to our members-only event and the first of our series on symbology. For those who don't know me, I am Barbara Faranik-Matonet, founder and president of the Art Circle. We are thrilled to have with us today DAO. DAO is a Chilean Spanish painter who studied architecture in Chile and a founding professor of the DAO Academy in Madrid. He exhibited at the Marlborough Gallery in Santiago, Chile. He participated in various exhibitions in England, Italy, and Spain, and the important exhibition Masters of Contemporary Spanish Realism at the Panorama Museum in Germany. He is an expert in the techniques of oil paintings of the 17th century, especially Velázquez, and regularly conducts workshops and conferences. Today, he will tell us the passionate story of one of the most emblematic paintings in the National Gallery in London, the Arnolfini portrait by Jan van Eyck, a work of art that through its symbols reveals the depth of human nature. Dear DAO, thank you again so much for accepting our invitation. Before starting, I have a few administrative matters. First of all, we have put you all on mute. Please remain muted during the whole presentation. And may I ask you to address your question on the chat that you will find on your screen. At the end of the presentation, our dearest Lina will ask them for us. DAO, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Okay, well, hello everybody. Welcome to this lecture. It is a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to talk to you about painting from Spain to you in Abu Dhabi. I must tell you that English is not my native language, so I hope to be understood, and I apologize for any problem with this point. Today, we are going to talk about the story of the painting known as the Arnolfini portrait by Jan van Eyck, a primitive Flemish painter that was made in 1434. It is in the National Gallery in London. Its dimensions are 82 centimeters high by 60 centimeters wide. That is, it is a small painting. For its size, the Arnolfini portrait packs a lot of information in. It's an oil painting on oak panel, and today we are going to do an iconographic analysis. And I just want to say that at the time, what was really impressive about this painting was how realistic and three-dimensional the image was. In this painting, as you will see, it is filled with all these little details that seems like tantalizing little clues as to what we are actually looking at. Several of these elements have a symbolic meaning, and a symbol is something that has not a fixed meaning in wherever context you will find it. For instance, in Asia, the color of mourning is white, and in the West, it is black. And also, the same object can symbolize more than one thing. And that's actually precisely the point. It's all about the context, a correlation to what the entire painting wanted to say. Well, so what are we seeing here? It is, of course, this lovely double portrait. Two people that are just standing in this room. Is a domestic interior. And it's easy to forget that this is a first in history. There had never been anything like this before. There are not early double portraits set inside an entire architectural setting like this. You see the entire room and it's filled with all kinds of different elements. Well, Bruges in the 15th century was the hub of international trade, and here we can see a small showcase of articles of the war. This green dress needed wool imported from England, textiles and fabrics needed plants and spices imported from India to be dyed. This black hat was the latest fashion imported from Italy. His tabard is lined with skins of paint martens from Russia. We have an oriental carpet. These little prayer beads made with amber, which came from the Baltics, and the oranges were imported from Spain or Italy. What are they doing? It is a wedding. It is a betrothal. It is just a portrait of a man and his wife standing in a room showing how wealthy they are. Well, the first modern interpretation of this work of art, it's from 1934 by Erwin Panofsky, who was a German historian, art historian. He thought that this was a wedding painting and that it represented the wedding of Giovanni Arnolfini, who was an Italian merchant in Flanders, and Giovanna Cenami from another Italian family living in Paris. He thinks that because they hold hands and he holds up his right hand as if he's promising something or making a house. Panofsky did some research. We have a problem.
Yes, we have a problem. Let me mute all again, and you can unmute yourself alone, maybe. Okay, can you unmute yourself, please, DAO?
Well, but I don't know why.
Yes, that's perfect. Perfect.
But can you see a blue line in the picture?
Yes, yes, we can.
But I don't know
why. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter now.
Okay. Well, I said Panofsky did some research and found out that in the 15th century, you didn't have a priest. You don't have to have a priest to get married. You just need to have witnesses. So he refers that to this Latin inscription that means Jan van Eyck was here. And he says, well, this means that the painter was a witness to the marriage, that, you know, he's testing that the marriage actually took place. So on one level, this paint is the wedding picture. On another level, Panofsky believes that is a kind of document, a kind of marriage certificate. So the main theory that has been around for ages is that what we see here is a wedding ceremony. Now, Panofsky also thought that the different objects in the room were symbolic. They represent different aspects of Christian marriage, and they were a kind of treatise on Christian marriage. For example, he said, the dog represents fidelity, the burning candle symbolizes the presence of God in the room. Orange represents the Garden of Eden. The mirror represents the high-seeing eye of God, etc. And all this based on an old inventory of Margaret of Austria, who had ruled the Netherlands in 16th century. An inventory which was made when the painting was well over a century old. So there was no one who could give direct information about the portrait. Then Panofsky thought it was Giovanni Arnolfini, the richest Arnolfini now, Giovanni di Arrigo Arnolfini, the one who was married to Giovanna Cenami, the one who had dealings with the Dukes of Burgundy, Philip the Good. Giovanni was the most prominent member of the Arnolfini family, and eventually he became the treasurer of France. So he was a merchant who really rose in court circles. And then a new document was discovered in the archives in Bruges, the official marriage document of Giovanni Arnolfini and Giovanna Cenami, as published in 1997, and this showed when Giovanni Arnolfini and Giovanna Cenami were married. And they were married in 1447, 13 years after the painting was made. So you couldn't have a wedding portrait or portrait of them as a man and a wife in 1434, 13 years before. On the other hand, Jan van Eyck died in 1441, and the real wedding was in 1447, 6 years after Van Eyck's death. So if by that time Van Eyck was died, it was not possible for him to write in the painting Jan van Eyck was here. So Giovanni married to Giovanna Cenami had nothing to do with the person who's portrayed here. He could not be that man. Then the portrait has to be a person whose name is Giovanni Arnolfini. He's just not the Giovanni Arnolfini who married Giovanna Cenami. Well, exactly. It was also discovered that in Bruges, there were actually two Giovanni. One was called Giovanni di Arrigo Arnolfini, and the other was called Giovanni di Nicolao Arnolfini. There were cousins, and these extra names were their fathers. So they were just there to distinguish them one from the other. And this point is very important because the whole story of this painting depends on who the lady is. The wife of Giovanni, yes, but which Giovanni? Now, the people who are painted here are Giovanni di Nicolao Arnolfini and his wife Constanza Trenta, who got married in 1426. And when the picture is painted, they had been married for 8 years. So the image is not a wedding, but this couple actually is a marriage. So let's start again. The big question is, what we're actually looking at here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, maybe the greatest love story ever told in portraiture. We know this is a recreated image. It's an image recreated in the artist's studio. There is a lost painting by Van Eyck that we can see in another painting that shows the collection of a famous collector of 17th century, Cornelis van der Geest, this man portrayed here by Anthony van Dyck, when Van Dyck was only 21 years old, but that is another impressive story. The Gallery of Cornelis van der Geest by Willem van Hertz from 1628. The lost painting by Van Eyck is Woman in the Bathroom, showing the same room and basically the same type of furniture as the Arnolfini portrait. Exposed beams, windows, doors, the shutters, furniture below the window, the bed, furniture in background, the floor here. This means that what we see in the Arnolfini portrait is a staged environment. Everything is there on purpose. Nothing in this painting is here by accident because it's not a casual photograph. Well, the people here are quite wealthy. It is a scene that denotes luxury and shows his social position in every detail that we can see. They're wearing rich clothing. They have expensive furniture for the time. In the background is a settee covered by rich red velvet. Then we have the bed with costly textile, etc. They even have a mirror in the background, which will certainly be a luxury item. At the time when the few people had glass in their windows, we can see the Arnolfini's window are semi-glazed, only has glass in it at the top. The chandelier. So they're wealthy, but they are not aristocrats. We don't see a coat of arms. We don't even see a huge amount of jewels, no expensive embroidery of gold. I mean, that everything shows wealth, but in a decorous way, without fuss. Well, as we're going to see, the main character here is her, the lady. And the first thing you notice is her famous green dress. And here in the green color, we find the first and main symbolic element of this painting. And in this context, indeed, green, which symbolizes fertility, it's a good choice. The green colors represent paradise. It's the color of life. It's related to abundance and fertility. And why in the West at this time does green mean this? Because it is a direct Islamic influence to the European Renaissance culture, like many other ideas. And it is the most visible color in the image and represent the great idea of this painting. These paintings tell us tells us about love and fertility, and the green color is the most powerful chromatic expression of this. So the main image here is the lady, but the green lady. And on this lady, there is this thing about whether or not she's pregnant. And here is the great mystery of this painting. And it has a transcendental importance to understand its true meaning. There is some evidence that shows she doesn't have to be pregnant, and some evidence that you could interpret as her being pregnant. If we compare the image of Constanza Trenta with other images of the time, we can see that she did not have to be pregnant. Now, for time reasons, we will see them quickly, oversimplified. This is the Dresden Triptych by Van Eyck. And on the side panel, this figure here in blue, which has the same pose as Mrs. Arnolfini, represents Saint Catherine of Alexandria. And as you know, traditionally, holy women are virgins and therefore do not get pregnant. So this woman here is not pregnant. We have several examples of ladies pulling up their clothes because was it necessary to be able to walk. We see here a bridal couple, German oil on panel from the same period. Marriage of the Virgin by Pedro Berruguete, a Spanish painter. Marriage of the Virgin to tapestry, the same period. Well, the other point is that the fashionable figure of a woman in Europe in the 15th century had a rounded abdomen. This was like a canon of beauty. This is Eve in the Garden of Eden with a large belly. And Eve wasn't pregnant until after she came out of Eden. This is the illuminated medieval manuscript, The Very Rich Hours of the Duke of Berry. We can see to Eve in the Grand Altarpiece by Jan van Eyck too. So once again, the figure can be pregnant, but she had a rounded stomach. Those are some reasons why she's not necessarily pregnant. However, as we will see now, there are some important references to the motherhood, fertility, and even childbirth in this picture. Then we have several objects like symbols related to maternity and fertility, and finally with the idea of the family. First of all, the big grand dress of Constanza. For the dress itself, not for the green color. Dyeing wool was difficult, laborious, and extremely expensive. To get his deep green and this uniform in color, took a master dye, wigs, and several processes using plants, herbs, and imported spices. It would be clear to the viewer that time as well as fabric had been invested, but it was the intensity of the green that was the real indicator of how expensive her dress was. As a second item, her white headdress. Her covered head indicates she is already married. It's a symbol too, but a social symbol like the wedding rings. We know she once had the dress over her abdomen, but the hand on the belly is a natural gesture of tender. It's pretty self-evident. There are references to childbirth. The woman is standing right now, right in front of this bed, which could refer to the consummation of the valid marriage on Christianity, and the place where she could bear his children would be in the bed. And then, of course, there is the Saint of Midway. Just behind her, not exactly above her womb, but almost in the background, is a wooden chair with high back. And on that back, you can see this little carved figure on the top. It's of a Saint Margaret of Antioch, who is an early Christian martyr. Her history tells that a dragon ate her and she spent time in his belly praying, and then his belly breaks open and she stepped out alive and intact. What she didn't then is she take a broom and she swept up the remains of the dragon. And about the marriage, at the time, there was a tradition where people would, once they got married, A woman would then take a broom and sweep the porch or the area just in front of the front door of a house, because there was a popular belief that if you are married, the devil is in the house. Once you get married, when you get married, you have to sweep the devil out. So it's not an accident that there is a broom just below St. Margaret. It's most likely a reference to this costume. So Saint Margaret of Antioch, presumably because she had a kind of cesarean birth for the dragon, is considered to be a patron saint to women in childbirth and midwife. There is an orange on the windowsill and some orange on the furniture below the window. Now, oranges do not grow in Northern Europe. It is too cold. They were imported. So imported oranges are yet another status symbol only very wealthiest could afford. They represent the idea of not only wealth, but also the idea of fertility again. But mainly they are fruits, and fruit is often seen as a symbol of fruitfulness. Here we see two paintings about the Virgin Mary by Van Eyck, where wealth is not exactly what is intended to convey, but otherwise fruitfulness. So all in the pain is related to the fact that she will bear children, or they have the desire for children. So does that mean that she's pregnant, or could it refer to the hope of pregnancy? Then we have other objects related to the marriage, more precisely with the idea of purity and of the sacred in the conjugal commitment. We can see the wooden overshoes on the floor, used to elevate the foot above the mud and dirt on the then unpaved street, and known as pattens. Essentially, they're 15th century goloshes. It's basically a wooden sandal, like a clog with a leather band. And you know, would you have your portrait done with the all beat up pair of galoches on the front? They are in a prominent place. So what could it mean? But in the Judeo-Christian tradition, as well as in the Islamic tradition, we have that idea of the sacred ground when we are in the presence of God. Remember Moses removing sandals on Sinai Mount. So it's a way to show that what happened there, it's sacred. And in other paintings from the same period, we can find the same image. These paintings are representing the birth of Christ, the Nativity. For instance, Petrus Christus Nativity. Here are the sandals. Hugo van der Goes with the famous The Portinari triptych. And we can see this character, Joseph, taking off his patents because the stable of the Nativity by the birth of Christ becomes sacred ground. In the Arnolfini portrait are as a symbol of the sanctity of marriage. Well, about the mirror, in Christianity, the Virgin Mary is often called speculum sine macula, what in Latin language means mirror without stain, about the virginity of Mary. So the mirror could refer not the virginity of Mary, but to the wife's virginity before marriage, the purity of woman. And this is very important for religious sensitivity. Finally, next to the mirror, you can see a religious item, these little prayer beads called Pater Noster, O Father, the name of the most famous prayer of Jesus. And these were a common gift from a man to his bride. So here is a symbol of marriage too. In the painting, all of these symbols work together to show the idea of the family, a classical family. This is marriage, pregnancy, and maternity. Well, and now the most important thing in this painting. The marriage that is portrayed here, Giovanni di Niccolao and Constanza, they had no recorded children, and Constanza passed away in 1433, the year before this portrait was painted. So what does this mean? And again, what we are actually looking at here. As we said, this is not a wedding. Well, this is actually a tribute made for Giovanni for his dead wife. It is a memorial painting for Constanza. But it was not uncommon to commission portraits of dead people. We can see here the family of Henry VIII. She is Jane Seymour, painted after death. And Isabel I, wife of the Emperor Carlos V, painted after death too. There are several clues who show that it's a memorial painting for Constanza. So now we will see the rest of the symbols that explain this situation. The seat behind her has gargoyles on its arms. Gargoyles were seen to ward off evil spirit, and Van Eyck places it directly above their joined hands. The figure is exactly above her hands. Can this really be a fluke? Or is it showing something bad that could separate them? Another detail that is pretty astounding is the chandelier. We see this chandelier hanging from the ceiling. What is strange about it though is that the chandelier has 6 spaces for candles, but only 2 are being used. And there's only 1 candle lit, the one on Giovanni's side. And the other on Constanza's side is recently snuffed out, suggesting that the man's life light is still burning, while hers are burned out. Obviously, it is a great symbol because in the middle of the day, they don't need candles. Outside, we can see a cherry tree, symbolizing not only renewal, fertility, or fruitfulness, but also the fleeting nature of life. Cherry tree only bloom for a short period. It is a famous tree for its fleeting beauty. Okay, but right now, it is off, like Constanza. Regarding the mirror, we have, on the one hand, the theme of the vanitas. Mirrors are often associated with vanitas painting. Vanitas is a pictorial genre of high symbolic and allegorical value that shows the relevance of death as the end of beauty and worldly pleasures. From Latin vanus, empty. This means life passes faster than you think. We see vanitas still life with a mirror and candles. Mirror and candles put together are typical elements of vanitas. But in the Adolfini portrait, they are put in a more casual way. And on the other hand, about the mirror, the only direct biblical reference are the 10 roundels surrounding the mirror, depicting the Passion of Christ. The storyline starts at the bottom toward the left. You can see a little man with a halo. It is Jesus praying on the Olive Mount, diagonal in the garden. They continue around. We have when Jesus was arrested, etc., and is finally crucified on the top of mirror. Okay, but the point is the theme of life and death. Well, all representation after Christ's death, the descent from the cross, the entombment, the descent of hell, and the resurrection are on Constanza's side. There is a dog there at their feet. There is a long tradition of a dog representing loyalty and fidelity. Anybody who has a dog knows how loyal they can be. But remember the point, it's all about the context. Then we can look at the common practice of placing dogs at the feet of women, particularly in tomb effigies. And going back into the Middle Ages, you can see sculptures of women on the tomb with dogs at their feet. There are many examples of this. This is the tomb of Mary of Burgundy with 2 little dogs. Well, Flanders, where Arnolfini and Van Eyck lived, was precisely in Burgundy. The dogs at the feet of the woman in their grave symbolize that they are faithful. This in the effigies of the tombs, but within the painting of the Arnolfini portrait, the total image of the woman with the dog at their feet symbolizes that she's dead. So here, in this context, the dog is symbolizing, in addition of fidelity, that she is dead. It is sculptural language put into painting. So it's really very original. And I should tell you also that the dog is not in the underdrawing. Infrared reflectogram showing the hem of the green skirt alongside the dog. We're going to take a look at some of that after. Well, the man wears equally exclusive clothes, but he's actually wearing dark mourning clothes. And this is also because Giovanni is grieving. And first of all, art is an emotional activity. So the important thing is in the emotion. And what we see here is not a person beaming with joy. No, it is an absolutely serious face, like with a lost look, no doubt about that. That is love, and if the person you love has passed away, maybe that person is you. In 1995, the National Gallery carried out a study of the hidden layers of the painting with infrared reflectography, where you can look through the picture surface. And the investigation showed that most of the objects, and to which Panofsky tried to give the meaning of a wedding, were painted after creating the fundamentals of the painting. Many things were not in the underdrawings. And the most important change corresponds to the position of Giovanni's raised hand. On the O's gesture by Giovanni, the original drawing shows the hand turned more outward. So Van Eyck altered that detail, and he made the hand turn toward the woman. And this because he was taking a vow to her or referring to her, perhaps suggesting a renewal of Arnolfini wedding vows. Well, this means that most likely the painting began as a double portrait, and then Constanza died, and after this, the painting was given another meaning. You must think that making a painting like this with the Flemish oil technique in oil of the time could take 1 year perfectly. Now, there are things that we can know in deep, such as change in the drawing, but there are things that we cannot know at all. Let's look at this. Above the mirror is a very elaborate Latin inscription. You can see all this ornamental calligraphy, and it says Johannes the High Fuitic, which means Johannes van Eyck was here. And he did it prominently in the center of this painting. This signature confirmed the presence of the artist himself in the room. The mirror shows two people. So Van Eyck maybe was one of them. So we figure this great signature not only gives us the name of the artist, it suggests some kind of importance to his presence. What does that mean? It just means, look, I portrayed what I saw, or Van Eyck was a personal friend of Giovanni and shows that he was with him in this hard moment, that he was accompanying him in his pain. So there are things that are a mystery. We don't know what the signature means. We also don't know who the second character in the mirror may be. And above all, did Giovanni lose only his wife? Or Costanza was pregnant and then he also lost her family? It is possible that she died giving birth. It was very common at that time. Then if so, the year the painting was made, she was brewing. We don't know if it could be that they wanted to get pregnant. Maybe they're trying to show us they want to have children. Well, in conclusion, many of the objects in the room, they are showing wealth and taste, but actually there is no ostentation. There are simply rich people, and that's all. We have compelling arguments to think that this portrait is a posthumous representation of Constanza. I think it is clear that this is some kind of statement on his part, and what kind of statement he could be making in this context. He may be promising to love her beyond that. Why not? The whole painting talks about beautiful things. I think this is not a death story. This is a love story. Personally, I guess it's some kind of commitment of eternal fidelity. Fini Portrait. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DAO. That was so interesting.
It's it's a
I'm going to
story, with very deep feeling. It's amazing for me. It's a very powerful history. Well,
really
what do you
amazing.
see? She's pregnant or she's not pregnant?
I thought she was pregnant. We're waiting. For everyone, I'm waiting for the comments, and I will be reading them for DAO. So I think this is very, very interesting, and it's so because normally when we go to, let's say, a museum, we go and pass by these paintings without anyone explaining, I mean, all these details. Now that we see one of these symbols, we're gonna stand by and see, you know, the interpretation and remember the interpretation that you just made. I'm waiting now for some questions, but I have some questions to ask you anyway. Mm-hmm. So do you think that the people of the time of that era, DAO, really knew the meaning of these when they saw them, or did they pass them by like we do now?
Okay, well, it's easy. Educated people did understand actually the meaning of the symbols in this painting. Educated people were very few, but they are the ones who could see this painting. The culture is essentially literary, and there were texts where this symbolic relationship were explained, religious and humanistic text. So yes, in every time, in every age, there are people who understand perfectly. Yes, because the artists make this work to be understood, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
And do you think that there are, the interpretation went mainly for this painting. Do you think that there's any important painting as much as this painting in history that's worth investigating? Is there any similar painting that is worth investigating like this one? Can you name them, please?
Yeah. You are asking to me about the other similar painting like this?
Yeah, I mean, this painting is very important in the history of paintings.
Yes.
Can you name any other paintings that are similar in importance?
Well, this picture, this painting, are related with many other works at the time in Flanders. Okay. But in the history of paint, there are very strong importance because this painting directly influenced to the conception of the image of Las Meninas by Velázquez. Spain ruled Flanders, and from there, this painting remained in the collection of the Spanish crown. So Velázquez can solve this painting. It's very important because in the Las Meninas, wait a minute, I don't know if you can see. This is, can you see this? No, yes, like this. Okay, this is part of Las Meninas. This is a mirror in the background of this great paint. And this mirror here is absolutely based on the convex mirror in the Arnolfini portrait.
So, is there any use of, is this, I mean, how was it painted? Was there any use of dark camera during its realization?
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. This point is very interesting because to make this paint was necessary to use the mirror. We can see in the image, excuse me, here, we can see in the background the mirror. Okay, this is a convex mirror, okay? But by the other side, we have a concave mirror. And with this concave mirror, the paint take the reflex of the image of the natural and put the reflex of the natural into the table or the format, no, in the canvas. This is a panel actually. So project the reality, the reflection, project the reflection in this convex, in the concave mirror, and is absolutely necessary, this instrument, to make this paint. In another way, the Italian painter used the drawing all with the perspective, horizon line, vanishing point, etc., and build all the image in this way. But in the Flanders, the painters works in this other way, using mirror every time. Like, for example, this portrait, who Maria Jose tell about it, as the Duke of Burgundy from Van der Weyden, is made in the same way, with a mirror. Is a reflection over the canvas, over the panel. It's a way to make this paint.
And someone is asking a very interesting question. Is this, where does this Islamic influence come from? Is it from the Ottoman or is it from the Silk Road? I
think from the Ottoman. Because it's actually Europe and all this influence in the Byzantine Empire. And then they came to Europe in the medieval, starting in the Renaissance. All the writers, the classical Greek philosopher, Aristotle, Platon, and others, they are transmitted to Europe between the Islamic, from the Islamic culture first. They made a translation from the Arabic to Latin.
Now, you just opened our eyes to something that otherwise can go, unnoticed. Thank you very much for your interpretation. I leave the floor to Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you so much, DAO, for your amazing and captivating presentation.
Thank you for it. Thank you.
So what we have learned today, like Lina just said, is to have another look and understanding of master paintings. What may look like details are in fact important symbols that carries important messages, having very strong meanings that the artist wanted to communicate through his art. So thanks to you, DAO, we are all here art lovers, but we will love it even better and even more.
Thank you.
Dear members and friends, thank you for coming today. Don't hesitate to follow us through our website and Instagram, theartcircle.ae, where you will find all our information regarding the webinar, the registration also of the webinar. DAO, it was such a pleasure to host you today in our series on symbology. On behalf of the Art Circle board, a heartfelt thank you again. Stay safe, stay tuned, and
it's a pleasure and honor for me. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for my English, but very, very exciting experience. Thank you very much.
Your English was perfect. Your English was
amazing. Very good feedback.
Thank you. Yes, I feel that. I feel that absolutely. Thank you.